Bueno, damos ya la bienvenida al primer ponente, a Luke Williams. Luke, ¿estás por aquí? Oh, Luke, are you here? Hey, Luke. Good to see you. Look, this, for us, this is like a football match, a 2 days football match, and you have to shot the first penalty. So all the pressure is with you, basically, because if you start well, the conference will go high. But no, honestly, we join you as first speaker because we think that you will give us an overview how to create new businesses and disruptive businesses. So we're very happy to have you with us. Luke is a fellow of Frog Design. He's from Australia. We are very happy to have you here. Good luck. Luke.
Thank you, Pablo. Hello, everyone. How is everyone? Feeling good? Pablo told me I'd be kicking off last night the whole football thing. So I had a few drinks. I'm from Australia originally, but based in New York now. And I'm a fellow at Frog Design, and I also teach at New York University Stern School of Business. And once I get the slides up, I'll tell you a bit more about that. But I'm really here. 1
second, just in case there are simultaneous translation devices outside. Does someone want to translation?
Okay. And that's okay. That's okay. Yes, my Spanish is non-existent. I'm sorry. Oh, the translation's working now, I see. So I'm here. I'm delighted to be here in Madrid. I'm very excited to be talking about innovation and a way of thinking which is of critical importance to innovation. It's a way of thinking that I've just written a book about. The book is called Disrupt. And it's about a way of thinking that surprises the market again and again with unexpected solutions. A way of thinking that produces unconventional strategies that leaves competitors scrambling to catch up. A way of thinking that turns consumer expectations on their head and can take an entire industry into its next generation. It's a way of thinking I call disruptive thinking, and it is really the key ingredient for innovation. It is where innovation starts. It's okay. In terms of where innovation starts, you often hear the word competition come up. So when I'm discussing what innovation means and why you do it, a lot of people say it's because we want to gain an edge on the competition, right? Differentiate our products, our services, our business model to gain an advantage over a competitor. But what I've discovered in those conversations is that people have a very outdated notion of the word competition. If you go back to the history of the word competition, where it started, it comes from the Latin verb, meaning to seek together, meaning we choose to run in the same race. And that's how many people are still approaching their business, choosing to run in the same race as their competitor, playing the same game. And this is why we have so much incremental differences in otherwise identical products, which is making it very hard for consumers to understand the difference between shallow, superficial novelty and really deep, meaningful change. So the first thing about thinking differently, about thinking disruptively, is to change your definition of competition and think differently about the business you're in. The main point of that is when people speak about disruptive technology or innovation, they're often they're telling you how to spot the changes going on in the marketplace. So how to spot and react to disruptive change in your circumstances or your business. But I think this is too much of a passive approach. I think it's much more important to be the disruptive change in your industry. To be the one that takes the industry in another direction. Now, when that is the case, it doesn't resemble the traditional notion of competition, which is a very happy thing. If you're choosing to play in the same race or the same game as your competitor, everything's good, yeah? Because you just have to make it faster or you just have to make it cheaper than your competitor. But it's this very happy notion. I don't know who this guy is, but he was the happiest guy I could find on the internet. But this reminds me of, if we all play along together, may the best business win. But what I'm interested in talking to you about today is how to be that disruptive change. And when you are being the disruptive change in your industry, it doesn't look like this. It looks like this. Anyone recognise that image? You? Yep. The Psycho scene, the shower scene in Psycho, where she gets stabbed. Now, can anyone tell me what happened in that famous Alfred Hitchcock movie before she got stabbed in the shower? Does anyone remember it? Yes, she got stabbed in the shower. But before that, and I hardly get this answer from anyone, no one can remember where the film started. She had stolen a suitcase of money and was on the run. So the film started out as a caper film. Everyone was wondering, when are they going to catch her because she stole the money? Then she got stabbed in the shower, and all of a sudden it was like, who did that? Why was she killed? They didn't even know about the money in the car. And it took the film in another direction. And this, in Hollywood terms, is known as a turning point. All good films have them. A turning point catches the audience by surprise with something unexpected, and it takes that film in another direction. And you're curious to see where it's going. Now, turning points don't just exist in films, they exist in businesses, in industries, in segments. Your job as an innovator is to find the turning point for your market, your segment, or your category, to take it in another direction. And this is normally the sort of thinking that small-scale enterprises and startups are best at, right? Innovations normally come from outsiders. However, the world is changing. You're going to hear a lot about this in the conference over the next couple of days. We're no longer, we've been through the agricultural age, we've been through the industrial age, we've been through the information age, but we have left the information age. So the age that you have been educated for, we have moved beyond it. We are now entering, or have entered, what's often referred to as the creative age, the conceptual age, and many call it the disruptive age. Because many of the certainties that we understood about business no longer hold true in this new age. And everybody, no matter what role you have in your organization or your business, everybody has to develop a comfortable fluency with the skills of creative thinking and innovation. And this is very hard to do because we're educated out of our creativity. But we never used to be that way. It was Picasso who once said that every child is born an artist. The problem is to remain an artist when one grows up. Isn't that true? You watch children playing. They are busy designing and experimenting approaches to their world. But then as they grow, they learn the adult way of doing something, the right way of doing something. And their design motivation fades away. And then when they go out and go to school and we go through our education system, again, our creativity is educated out of us as we learn the right way of doing something. It's what the cognitive scientists call patterns of perception, and we all have them. The more experienced you are in a certain field, the stronger are your patterns. The better you get at something, the stronger your patterns are. Now, to show you how powerful these patterns are, I want to show you a quick clip from a movie. Now, who here has seen a very famous film called The Shining? Raise of hands. Okay. Maybe half the audience. For those who haven't seen it, this is one of the scariest films ever made. Right, based on a horror novel by Stephen King. As you can see, this woman is not having a good time. There are knives involved. It's very scary. Now, they had a competition a couple of years ago for editors of films. The rules were simple. They had to take a famous film and create a new trailer for it, which would shift your perceptions of what that film was about. So shift it from one genre into another. And this is what the winner came up with. We'll need sound, guys.
He's a writer looking for inspiration.
Lots of ideas. No good ones.
Meet Danny.
It's a torch.
He's a kid looking for a dad.
There's hardly anybody to play with around here.
What's up, Doc?
Jack just can't finish his book.
I don't want to sound melodramatic, but there's no way to make it economically feasible.
Here's to 5 miserable months.
But now, sometimes what we need the most is just around the corner.
I'm your new foster father.
I'd do anything.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill,
I love it.
I could see the city light. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things, I've come to take you home.
Shining.
I actually saw The Shining after I saw that trailer. I was in for a shock. Now, it was easy for the creators of that to shift your perceptions. The reason being is that your patterns for a horror film are just as strong as your patterns for a romantic comedy, because you've seen all these movies and these trailers before. So just by changing a couple of conventions, like the soft voiceover, the Peter Gabriel soundtrack. We've tried this actually. You can put Peter Gabriel in anything and it will soften it up. They were able to shift your perceptions from a horror film to a romantic comedy. Now, the same applies in business. Now, at Frog Design, the company I worked at for 8 years as a creative director, the company has a long history. 40 years. We started out working for Apple and Steve Jobs very early on a project called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And this is the original paperwork from 1982. Now, normally, well, I should say, this project actually led to the development of the Apple Macintosh SE. Now, normally, when you're a design firm and you're being briefed with a project, It is lists and lists of requirements, particularly for technology products. It has to be this price point. It has to have this much memory. It has to be this fast. It has to be aimed at this target segment. Lists. Steve Jobs didn't give Frog Design a list of requirements. He said only one thing. He said, when asked what he wanted from the future of Apple and his vision for computers, he simply said this: I want Bob Dylan songs. Right? I mean, can you imagine getting that? You're about to design a computer, and the boss says to you, I want a computer like a Bob Dylan song. Any Bob Dylan fans? A few. Bob Dylan music is often described as poetic, so he wanted that emotional connection. For any who hadn't heard it, here's an example. We'll need volume again, guys. Okay, no volume. I'll sing it. So Bob Dylan, if you want to understand how innovation works, study the career of Bob Dylan. As soon as he gains success in one category and the competitors catch up, he runs in another direction. And he often alienates his existing fan base to do it. It's quite interesting. What Steve Jobs was...
Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you...
So imagine trying to translate that into a computer. Okay? Now what Steve Jobs was doing was he was making an intentionally unreasonable statement to get our thinking flowing in a new direction. And this is very important, very important. This is the difference between prediction and provocation. If you're saying to somebody, what if a computer was like a Bob Dylan song? That is what we call a disruptive hypothesis. And it differs significantly from our normal meaning of the word hypothesis. Normally we refer to a hypothesis as, oh, my cell phone doesn't work. I wonder if it's the battery. That's a hypothesis. If I change the battery, maybe it will work. So then I test the hypothesis. I change the battery. If it was the battery and the phone works, great. If it doesn't, I need a new hypothesis. That's you make a reasonable prediction about why the phone doesn't work. However, in design and innovation, we don't make reasonable predictions. We make unreasonable provocations. So in this cell phone example, what if my cell phone didn't need a battery at all? That would be an unreasonable provocation. Now I'm here today to tell you that there is far too much prediction going on in businesses around the world and far little provocation. And anyone who is engaged in innovation needs to develop comfortable fluency with the skills of deliberate provocation. It's the difference between looking at something and saying why, or dreaming something that doesn't exist and saying what is. And the difference is profound. And you can see examples of businesses in every industry that have started with this sort of disruptive hypothesis. Socks. Think about socks. How often have we worn socks or bought socks in pairs and they match all around the world? That's our expectation. A friend of mine was at dinner one night and they came up with the idea or the hypothesis and said, what if somebody sold socks in sets of 3 and none of them match? Everyone thought it was a crazy idea. That's not usable. Who would want socks that don't match? However, they pursued that, experimented with it, and started a company called Little Mismatched. And they sell socks in sets of 3, you can't buy them in pairs, none of them match. And they're a hit with tween girls, 9 to 12-year-old girls. Now they're into furniture, they're into toys and other things. Soda or soft drink. Okay, we take for granted, our expectation is that soda is inexpensive, it tastes good, and it's advertised as aspirational. Okay, Coke and Pepsi wrote the rule book on aspirational marketing. You know, this isn't a can of soda, this is American democracy. Till somebody came up with a disruptive hypothesis and said, what if soda was expensive? What if it tasted bad? And what if it was advertised as functional? So we're not going to tell you this is going to change your life. We're just going to tell you it's going to give you a boost when you need it. Any guesses? Red Bull. Okay. Placed no importance on taste. Launched at double the price of Coca-Cola. And totally moved away. A radical departure from aspirational marketing. Rental cars. This is an example that used to drive me crazy. How many times have you rented a car and they only rent by the day and you bring it back a few minutes late and they charge you another day? The expectations are the same. They have to see the customer has to fill out paperwork, and they rent new cars by the day. Disruptive hypothesis, what if we didn't have to see the customer? There was no paperwork for them to fill out, and they could rent cars by the hour. Now, this is a big example in the United States, and I know the car sharing model started in Europe, but Zipcar have put their own spin on it. Now they have 85% of a very, very large market. And this is what disruptive innovation does. It gives you a very long lead time over your competitors. And a great disruptive strategy will always have the competitors scrambling to catch up. So Hertz and Avis, two other big car rental companies, are scrambling to catch up. What I've talked about today is just one step in the process for innovation, but this is where disruptive innovation starts. It starts with a disruptive hypothesis. You then have to take that hypothesis and you have to work out how that is going to become a viable business opportunity. You have to take that opportunity and then turn it into a usable idea. You then have to take that idea and turn it into a practical solution. Because disruption for disruption's sake is just annoying. It has to deliver value. You have to find out who loves socks that don't match. And finally, you have to pitch that disruptive solution to somebody who is going to implement it or back it or invest in it. Even within your own company, you have to build a persuasive story around that solution. And I'm going to leave you with this example. If you really want to know how disruptive thinking works, study the work of professional comedians, because they are masters of disruptive thinking. If you think about what a comedian does, he tries to work out what his audience is taking for granted, what do they expect, and then he changes that expectation. He surprises them with something unexpected, and that's where the humour comes from. So watch how they work. Now, this is a comedian from London called Eddie Izzard, and I'm going to show you a clip from Eddie. Now, in this clip, you will hear Eddie's voice, but what you will see is a Lego animation. Somebody with a bit much time on their hands has created this animation of what Eddie's saying. Now, what he's talking about in this comedy is the Church of England, okay, as a religion. And he's really on a rant about religion, but what he's saying is the Church of England is not a very scary religion. You know, if you don't obey the principles that the Church of England puts forward, nobody's really scared about the consequences. So he flips that expectation on its head and he says, what if they were a scary religion? What if they had an extreme point of view? What would happen? This is the other thing about comedians. They play that through. They take the hypothesis and they bring it to life for the audience. And it is the same for innovation in a business. Take the hypothesis and imagine that working through moment to moment. So his extreme provocation for the Church of England is you must have tea or cake with the vicar once a week or you die. And then he plays that through. So guys, we'll need sound for this as well.
But you can't do that in Church of England. You can't say, you must have tea and cake with a vicar or you die. You can't have extreme points of view. You know, the Spanish Inquisition wouldn't have worked with Church of England. Talk, will you talk? But it hurts. Well, loosen it up a bit, will you? Because that's what it would be. Tea and cake or death. Tea and cake or death. Tea and cake or death. Students with beer. Tea and cake or death. Tea and cake or death. Little red cookbook. Little red cookbook. You know, because cake or death, that's a pretty easy question. Anyone can answer that. Cake or death? Cake, please. Very well. Give him cake. Oh, thanks very much. Very nice. You, cake or death? Cake for me too, please. Very well. Give him cake too. We're going to run out of cake at this rate. You, cake or death? Death, please. No, cake, sorry. You said death first? Death first. No, I meant cake. Oh, all right. You're lucky I'm Church of England. Cake or death? Cake, please. Well, we're out of cake. We only had 3 bits and we didn't expect such a rush. So what do you want? Well, so my choice is or death? Well, I'll have the chicken then, please. Taste of human, sir. Would you like a white wine? There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you for flying Church of England. Cake or death?
The potential for reinvention is all around us. We are still surrounded by products, services, and business models that were based on decisions made over 50, even in some cases 100 years ago. So the potential for reinvention is all around us. It is an incredible time to be thinking about how to structure or restructure your business, your life, even your community in new ways that create value. So please, enjoy this moment, enjoy the possibilities. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much, Luke. First of all, I'll make a comment for the audience. I'll make it in Spanish. Para el que quiera hacer preguntas luego de las sesiones, por favor, formar una fila aquí delante del micrófono y al final de varias de las sesiones tendremos preguntas y respuestas con los ponentes. So look, my question for you would be, you've been giving us, illustrating up the process for generating disruption, but imagine that all these people go back to the office right now. What would be the one huge takeaway, the thing you'll tell them to do right now?
The first thing I think you should do when you go back to the office is, depending on how large your business is, set up a team to deliberately attack your current products, your current services, your current business model. Get them to attack your current successes as if they were a competitor or a new startup, because that's what startups do. They have this energy. They have this mission to go out and take apart the existing businesses in a space. So if you are one of those existing businesses in a space, start a team that is given the incentive, given the responsibility to attack your current business. Find out where it's weak, and then create a new solution that would put your existing business out of business. Now, once you have that solution, you have a number of choices for what you do with that. You can change some of your existing offerings, or you can create new offerings. But it's incredibly important that you start attacking your own business model before somebody else does it.
Hi, Luke. Thanks for that. That was a great talk.
Thank you.
Question about the initial part of your talk, where you're talking about creativity and how we're more creative when we're younger, and how that kind of fades away.
Yes.
I'm interested in your view on how technology enables creativity, and now technology being a lot more affordable and eventually, pretty much global. The impact you can have is much faster, and it's much more global. Do you think that there is a perfect kind of ecosystem whereby that creativity is enabled through the use of technology, and we are at a kind of a turning point right now, as you defined, where there is a lot of opportunities to create this, to kind of reveal that creativity that we all have in us.
Yes.
I'd like to hear about it. Yeah.
So the question was, how is technology really influencing our approach to creativity? And I think you're exactly right. Technology is changing the way we communicate and share ideas. So I think the number of people sharing ideas and getting diverse viewpoints is incredibly important for creativity. And the speed at which we can get ideas into shape and share them with others is a massive, massive change. However, many people rely on this technology to be creative now. And actually, in some ways, I think we're increasingly reliant on technology for our creativity. And what I'm seeing in my students, some of my client organizations, is that they are actually becoming less creative because they're not doing the hard thinking required to truly be innovative. They're thinking the solution is going to come from somewhere else and they're going to find it on the internet. So while I think technology is enabling us to share ideas more, I don't think you should rely on technology. You must make a concerted effort to actually go low-tech and start by changing the way you think about business and the competition you're in. That's the important thing.
So my question is, when you're pitching a very disruptive idea or model or product, how do you convince investors or stakeholders that sometimes are kind of conservative about models and industries?
Yes, good question. My friend from last night, one of the winners of the entrepreneur competition, so he's very interested in his pitch today. It's a bit of a cheat question. So the question was, how do you pitch your disruptive idea? There are a number of different ways to do that, but I do about this in one chapter of the book. There's 3 key components. The first is that you have to build empathy with your audience. They have to know, why should I care about this? The best way to do that is to tell a story about the inadequacy of the status quo and how that is frustrating one of the existing customers. Don't show a whole lot of data. Tell one story about a customer that's frustrated with the status quo. Once you have their empathy, you have them caring. The second thing you have to do is build tension. You have to show them something, give them something they do not know. Tension-free presentations are the opposite. They give the audience exactly what they're expecting, and that is the kiss of death. It's a little bit like going to see a Hollywood film where it's just boy meets girl and they live happily ever after. Who would want to see that? All convincing Hollywood films are boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl back. It's the tension that holds our attention and holds us captivated until the end. The way we do that is by introducing a counterintuitive insight an insight that the audience is not expecting. That's how you engage their curiosity. And the third thing, just quickly, is that you have to build their belief. So once you've got them caring, then you've built their curiosity through tension. The third thing is to unveil your solution to the problem. And you have to build their belief in the value that that solution delivers. So you're really moving the audience from, why should I care, to, wow, this is great. How do I implement this? Good luck in the pitch.
Great presentation, Luke.
Thank you.
I mean, everybody here is pretty motivated just by the fact that we're here, but how do you protect yourself from negative sounding boards? You know, sometimes I go to a friend of mine says, what if we do this? And typically they're like, well, it's already been done. Or, well, you know, who do you think you are? How do you, because, you know, you're always thinking about it, but then the negative, how do you do it?
Protect against negative feedback that you're getting on your ideas.
Yeah, or trying to get, you know, synergy from your ideas. Because typically people will tell you, no, it's not possible, or it's not a good idea.
That's a great question. So the question was, how do you deal with negative feedback on your idea, or just a negative attitude in general? Let me say, the biggest killer of new ideas is the phrase, we've done that before. We tried that 5 years ago and it didn't work. The biggest killer of new ideas. The best way to get around something like that and negative opinions is, one, to link it back to a really interesting and powerful customer insight. So an insight around a tension that is in the marketplace. That will be very hard for them to argue with. The second thing is don't just talk about the idea, show it to them, bring it to life. Many of our clients say, oh, Luke, we don't need any more ideas. We've got so many ideas. We don't know what to do with all the ideas. We need help figuring out which ones to do. So I ask them, can I see the ideas that you have? And they start backpedaling. Well, we don't have them written down or anything, but we discuss them a lot. And this is a big problem. Most ideas are never articulated in anything but water cooler conversations in the kitchen. So to get people on board with your idea, you need to document the idea, bring it to life in a prototype, and show them, make them experience the value it delivers. Because if you're just talking about it, you're just going to encourage them to critique it. It's human nature. I think we're all done. Thank you again for your time and attention to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Oliver.